meeting and then.
Sure. Welcome to the February 2022 meeting of the Finance Committee. It's taking place by way of Zoom. So without any further ado, do I have to say anything else, Sarah? I'll turn it over to you and then you turn it back over to me.
Okay, very good. I will read the roll for this meeting. We have with us today on this February 1st meeting of the Finance Committee, our Finance Committee Chair, Jerry Romsky, Al Carney, Janice McKinney, and also joining us are John Johnson, John Gardner, and Joan Sullivan for board members. And from DASNY staff, we have our president, Ruben McDaniel, Paul Koopman, Caroline Griffin, Nadine Fontaine, Kim Ellis, Portia Lee, Ricardo Salomon, Dina Amodio, Alex Sardine, Matt Bergen, Dave Ostrander, Craig Shrivogel, Deb Fasser, Amanda Nazario, and myself, Sarah Richards. And I don't think I missed anyone. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. First up is the adoption of the meeting minutes from the last meeting of the Finance Committee, which I believe was in December, I believe. Do I have the date right?
I'm not certain, Jerry. I don't have it in front of me.
I'm looking.
November, maybe.
I think it's November. Okay.
January.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. So can I get a vote to adopt those meeting minutes? A motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Thanks very much. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. So that motion carries. Thank you. We have two financings to address today. I'm doing this off memory, so I believe first up is the new school financing. Do I have that right, Portia?
PIT / sales tax.
Okay. Well, it was a 50-50 shot and I missed. So first up is the PIT sales tax financing. Again, it's a very small amount, so I forget them, right? What is it, 2.4 so billion. So without further ado, I'm not sure who's presenting, Portia, because I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me.
Matthew is presenting, Jerry, and
thank you, Matt. Right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. The Finance Committee is being asked to recommend to the full board the authorization for the issuance of multiple series of tax-exempt and/or taxable fixed and variable rate bonds issued at one or more times in an amount not to exceed $3 billion with a term of 30 years, provided, however, that the maximum term for the portion of the financing related to the MTA capital projects would be 50 years. The fiscal year 2022 enacted budget authorized issuances undertaken by the state for MTA capital projects to be issued for a maximum term of 50 years. And to provide some background, the state directly contributes to the MTA's capital plan, and the pandemic has adversely affected the credit ratings of the MTA Transportation Revenue Bond Program, which increased their cost of borrowing. As a result, the state will issue PIT and/or sales tax revenue bonds to fund the state's portion of the MTA's capital plan. Previously, the financial plan assumed that the state's portion of the MTA's capital projects would be bonded for by the MTA, but funded by the state through additional operating aid. The state would like the flexibility to issue the proposed bonds under either the sales tax revenue bond program and/or the personal income tax revenue bond program. However, at this time, the current plan is to issue under the personal income tax revenue bond program, otherwise known as the PIT revenue bond program. This authorization is for new money and refunding purposes, and the new money portion is estimated at approximately $2.1 billion and may include the funding or reimbursement related to capital projects for the City of the University of New York facilities, capital projects for the Office of Mental Health, the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, and the Office of Addiction Services and Supports. In addition, projects are looked to be funded for the State University of New York's educational facilities, the Dedicated Highway and Bridge Trust Fund projects, MTA transportation facilities projects, state and municipal facilities grants, housing capital facilities projects, and healthcare grants. In addition to the new money portion, The authorization also looks to cover the refunding of certain series of bonds issued under various state-supported debt programs in the amount of approximately $780 million. For security, both the sales tax revenue bond program and the personal income tax revenue bond program are secured by semi-annual payments to be made pursuant to the financing agreements between DASNY and the Division of the Budget. For the sales tax revenue bond program, the security also includes a set aside of 2 cents or 50% of the state's 4% sales tax pursuant to statute and deposited in the sales tax revenue bond tax fund. For the personal income tax revenue bond program, the security also includes 50% of the receipts from the New York State personal income tax, 50% of the employer compensation expense tax, and 50% of the receipts from the imposition of the pass-through entity tax, which shall be deposited in the revenue bond tax fund. For the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2022, the debt service coverage on all outstanding state personal income tax bonds is projected to be 9.5 times total debt service, and the debt service coverage on all outstanding sales tax bonds is projected to be 6.6 times total debt service. On the PIT coverage of 9.5 times, this reflects the timing of the pass-through entity tax receipts, which have been received. However, the accompanying tax credits, which would be an offset, do not begin until April of 2022. Overall, the Division of the Budget expects that the pass-through entity tax receipts will be revenue neutral to the state. However, because of the timing of the receipts, it may not be revenue neutral within each fiscal year. And finally, the expected ratings of either program are AA2, AA+, and AA+. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Any questions or concerns?
It's a $2.7 billion. It's a lot of money. And Matt and I have had a chance to talk about this, Mr. Chairman. The 50-year plan for the MTA financing it's a big number, and I just want to ask the question whether or not staff is comfortable that we are doing. It isn't revenue neutral now. It may be at some point, but is staff really comfortable that the 50-year number is a reasonable number? It sounds, Matt, like it is. I know you believe it is, but for the record, would you can we get into the record something that suggests that although it's a bit unusual for us, staff is comfortable that we're doing the right thing both for the state and for the MTA?
Yes, Al. I concur with that. Staff is comfortable. The fiscal year 2022 enacted budget authorized the issuances for a maximum term of 50 years. When we discussed this in November, ultimately the bonds were issued for the MTA piece for a term of approximately 30 years, and that was based on the useful life. So although the outline parameter is 50 years, we will look at the useful life of the assets to be financed, and that will determine the ultimate maturity of that portion of the bond issue.
Terrific. Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
I know,
Mr. Chairman,
Matt,
I didn't have any other questions, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine.
Thanks. I note, Matt, that the savings are all being taken basically in the first 5 years.
That's correct. That's the current plan right now. Yes.
Okay. And do we know whether they're doing PIT or sales tax or?
Right now, the expectation is under the PIT revenue bond program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Any other concerns or comments from anyone? I mean, I recognize it is a very large offering, but I think after reviewing some of the recent releases from the Controller's Office, as well as the Office of Budget, I mean, thankfully it appears that the state's finances are in pretty decent shape at this point in time, and I certainly think the city and the state is on the road to recovery. Thanks, by the way, to some of the great work that you folks at DASNY did early on in the pandemic. We seem to be on pretty decent fiscal footing. So I'm okay with it, Mr. Chair, unless anyone has any other concerns or questions. I'll ask for a vote to recommend that this be approved at tomorrow's full board meeting.
I make a motion.
Thank you
I'll
very much.
second that.
Yes.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion is adopted, and thank you so very much, Matt, for the wonderful presentation. Next up is the new school offering. I think that was about 160 million, if I'm correct, somewhere around there.
You got it.
And so I need someone to
David Ostrander is going to
David,
do
thanks,
the
David.
presentation. Sure.
take us away, David. Thank you.
Chairman, the Finance Committee is being asked to recommend to the full board one or more series of tax exempt and or taxable fixed and or variable rate bonds in an amount not to exceed $186,925,000 on behalf of the new school. This proposed transaction includes both new money and refunding components, both of which are aimed at furthering the university's strategic capital plans, while also providing long-term savings. For the new money proceeds, those proceeds will be used to finance costs associated with the acquisition, renovation, and equipping of a 12-story building located at 318 East 15th Street in Manhattan to provide residential living space for the university's students. This facility has been leased by the university as a residence hall since 2009. The purchase of the building will allow the university to upgrade the existing space while also reducing annual capital costs associated with the facility. The university expects to save at least $3.2 million annually through the purchase and the renovation of the property and the elimination of the annual lease expense. The refunding proceeds will be used to refund all or a portion of the university's Series 2011 bonds issued by DASNY. This proposed refunding is expected to result in net present value savings in the range of $3 million or 19% of the refunded bonds. As far as security, the university or the outstanding obligations of the university have been assigned a rating of A3 from Moody's and BBB+ from S&P. And with these investment grade ratings, the new school meets the requirements under DASNY's financing guidelines for the bonds to be issued as a general unsecured obligation of the university. The loan agreement may include additional security as determined by existing market conditions for similar credits. I just want to highlight some additional financial information on the new school. Like many other higher education institutions, the university's enrollment and operations were negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result of the pandemic, the new school transitioned to virtual programs, beginning with the spring 2020 semester and continue with an online format for the fall 2020 and spring 2021 semesters. Fall 2020 demand and enrollment were negatively impacted, with total FTE enrollment decreasing by 12.5% from the previous year. In addition, with management's strategic efforts to reduce density on campus, the university's housing capacity was at 10%, compared to nearly 90% for the previous year. The decline in total enrollment for fall of 20 resulted in diminished tuition revenue during fiscal year 2021, while the shift to remote learning that began in the spring of 2020 and carried through the spring of the following year reduced auxiliary revenue. So as a result, the university posted an operating margin of negative $66.3 million in fiscal year 21. It's a much different story for the current fiscal year. The university returned to in-person instruction in the fall of 21, and freshman applications and enrollment rebounded to exceed pre-pandemic levels. Total FTE enrollment reached 10,167 for the fall of 21, which is an increase of 16.6% over the previous year and an all-time high for the university. As a result, the university expects operating results to improve during the current fiscal year. With enrollment at an all-time high and residence hall occupancy currently at 95%, the university is experiencing an increase in operating revenue, and management expects an operating surplus for fiscal year of 2022. When looking at the balance sheet, the new school's financial resources have grown over 5 years despite the impact of the pandemic. Cash and investments increased by over 110 million over 5 years, mainly due to investment appreciation. And total net assets grew by 67.6 million over 5 years. So in summary, the university's enrollment and operations have rebounded in the current fiscal year following the challenges presented by the pandemic. The new school has also continued its strategic capital plan to reduce lease space and consolidate real estate around its university center. The proposed transaction will help further this strategic plan while also providing the university with savings through the purchase and renovation of the East 15th Street property and the refunding of the Series 2011 bonds. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any questions or concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. None. I've had a chance to talk to David about this, and I am very comfortable that the proposed transaction is for the new school is certainly directionally correct.
Right. And I think we've seen this type of financing on a couple of prior transactions. I think Toro and another one come to mind. So I'm comfortable with it. I really just had one question. I'm sure the board has done their due diligence in regard to the, to the appraised value and to make sure that the property, and I'm also sure that this is a private placement. Well, it might be.
No, this is expected to be a
No?
public offering.
Okay, but I'm sure they'll do their due diligence to make sure the property value is there. And then certainly property values in the city, especially in the residential world, continue to increase. So I'm generally comfortable with it now. So if anyone has any other concerns or questions, if none, I'll ask for a motion to recommend at tomorrow's full board meeting.
I'll move the resolution.
Thank you very much. Second. Thank
A second.
you all. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, that motion carries, and we recommend that it be approved at tomorrow's full board meeting. I don't think there's anything else on the agenda. The noise in the background is the ferry. I'm sure it's becoming a bit of annoyance, so I apologize for that. But unless there's anything else on the agenda, I'll ask for a motion to.
I move to adjourn,
to
Mr. Chairman.
adjourn. Thank you so very much, Al, and I look forward to, thank you. I guess that motion carries, none opposed. So that motion carries. I thank everyone for their attendance, and we look forward to seeing everyone, or at least talking to everyone tomorrow at 9:30. Thanks
Thank
so
you
very
very
much.
much, Jerry.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you, Al. You too,
Good night,
everyone. Be
everyone.
safe.